So really, then it becomes a matter of how they process it. So the thicknesses come from doing what they call a split. And what they'll do is they'll take whatever the whole hide thickness is, and they actually cut that hide and they split the hide so that you end up they run it through a machine so that this starts off with a certain thickness, and they'll split that, and you'll get a flesh side and you'll get a skin side. And the skin side is usually, if you're going to do veg tan, that's obviously that's how they finish it and slick it off. For good quality leather, that's what you get. It's called a full grain. So this is not really split, or they can be, but you're getting like the full all the way through the top side. It's a full grain of leather. All right. So then when you get a hide that's got some scarring or some marking and stuff like that, they'll take that kind of a split and they'll sand it. And when they sand that down, then you end up with a rough surface kind of like this. Now, in order to get what they call a top grain or a corrected grain leather, they actually sand that leather down and then they put an artificial surface on it. So you're still getting that kind of slicker, slicker look to it. It's kind of shiny. It's got a little bit of a gloss, but it's not like a suede, like the back side of this is. It's not suede. And this is actually artificial. It's not a natural finish, a natural top, like the veg tan. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure whether they do that synthetically or exactly what they do to make this slick surface. On the plus side, this does make it a little bit more resistant to staining or things like that. It's a little bit more water repellent. But when you get a top grain leather like this, these are almost always, I've never seen a top grain leather like this that's been artificially done that is still in a raw state, able to accept dye. These are always pre-dyed. They're processed farther down, whether mechanically or chemically. They're usually garment weight leathers. They're soft and they're pliable, and that has some benefits. One of them being is that the colors can be consistent. Your suede is the same leather. It's just a split. The difference is that it's got the same kind of a soft kind of nap on both sides. Now it still has a skin side and a flesh side, and a lot of times in your raw leather, if you look really close on the flesh side of your suedes, you'll see little areas where it hasn't been fleshed. It's a little bit rougher. It hadn't been 100% fleshed or things like that. There's textures and things that come from the flesh side. So you can still tell which is the inside and which is the outside, of leather. But they're all basically the same leather. They've just been split and processed in different ways, and that means that they're going to be good for different products. The colored leathers also have a tendency to bleed when they get wet. If you get this suede soaking wet, they say, oh, don't get suede wet. Well, it doesn't always really necessarily ruin the leather. You can get, I've gotten suede. You can get a piece of suede soaking wet, and still work it back to a fairly soft condition or whatever. But the problem is that the dye is going to come out on your clothes, and you're going to end up like with this, for instance, you're going to end up with a big purple shirt if you're wearing something over the top that's got this on your shirt. So you want to try to be aware of that. But it does, like I say, it does make good pouches and things like that. Here's an even thinner split of it. This is a really soft pouch, a little drawstring pouch. It's gonna kind of take the shape of whatever I put in it. But then your veg tan leathers is going to be typically a little bit softer or a little bit firmer. But even the thinner ones, you can soften them up a little bit. The point about using the veg tan leather though is that I can now control the dye process on that. So it doesn't matter whether I'm using the 5-ounce leather like the backing on the mini pouches here, or the 3-ounce leather here that's the front. That makes it a little bit thinner. It's easier to sew through, so that's what I use. The dye pretty closely matches because it'll takes the dye similarly. It's impossible to match exactly perfect because every hide is a little bit different and it's a little different color. So the different properties are, you would do the best you can. But the 5-ounce leather works pretty good for the backing. The thin works good for the front. I do use the top grain leather a little bit on some things. Here's a little belt pouch that I did, and this is just a plain brown belt pouch. It uses, the 5-ounce leather. It's a little bit stiffer, a little more durable. Um, but the 5-ounce leather works great for that. But for the gusset, to be able to be soft and expand, and be able for me to get in there with my sewing machine so that I can kind of pull this aside while I'm stitching. This is top grain leather. This is pre-dyed brown leather. It doesn't, as you can see, in real life, it doesn't match exactly the color, but it's pretty close. And for a gusset, this works really good. So I do use it occasionally, not terribly much. And then when you get into the thicker leathers, like the belt thicknesses or things like that, or bracers, those, anything 5-ounce or better will take a stamp. But I think really about 6 or 7-ounce leather is really when it starts. You're able to put some really nice gear designs into it. You can do some fancy dye work and stuff like that. So this cuff is made out of 7-ounce leather here. It's just an edge cuff, but I still use the 5-ounce leather on the straps because it breaks in faster and it's easier, a little softer on the arm. But again, you're looking at the back side of this. All of these leathers, it is going to be a little bit rough when you start with, and as you wear that, this is going to smooth out and break in just like anything else, and they're a little rough at the start, but the more you wear them, the longer you wear them, the more comfortable it's going to be. Just like breaking in a new pair of shoes. So, but that's a little bit about the different types of leather. Hopefully that explained things for the people who are curious about what top grain or what veg tan leather means and what the properties of that are. I try to use the best quality that I can. I think especially now with the mass production, the manufacturing that we have out there, you have a lot of people that are just used to fake leather or leather that's been, it's not really that great a quality, but they've sanded it down and added all these artificial finishes and stuff to them, to hide the fact that the leather wasn't really all that great in the first place. And so, you get some of the top grains you get, eventually they peel off. And, if you want to go to Walmart and, buy a fake leather belt or plastic or, or things that they're really are not all that great quality, sure, you can get it for half the price, but it's not going to last as long, and part of the appeal for steampunk is kind of a return to the idea of that old world craftsmanship, back when, things seemed to be made to last, and, that's how I try to make all my products. I know they're costume pieces. I know that most people are probably only going to wear those 2, 3, 4 times a year max, go to a few events or something. It's not going to be an everyday thing. But I'd like to think, that if you bought like a cuff like this and you wore this every day, this is going to last still a long time. I mean, several years. It should last several years. Then there's no reason why you shouldn't. I make my products with the idea that there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to wear this, for extended periods of time, and it's going to last you a long, long time to come. When you get tired of it, or you get friends that are interested in it, make it a hand-me-down, sell it to them at a discount or whatever, and they're still going to have a product that they're happy with, because the leather itself is, use good leather, it's going to last. So, but that's a little bit about the different properties of the leather. I hope that answers some questions, and especially not just for those of you who have product questions, but for those of you who are interested in starting in the leather and want to know a little bit about the different types of leather. There's also some great resources. I know I saw an article on Wikipedia that had some really great information about how there are different types of leather, and how they tan them, and the different basic properties and stuff like that. So do a little research too. But anyways, that's basic information. I hope that helped out a lot, and thanks for watching.